This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. As the economy reopens and we're trying to get back to business as per pre-pandemic days, we want to explore one critical industry, that is, of course, the food service industry. Joining me for this particular episode is Fonterra Brands. They are, of course, quite familiar in terms of the brands that you have, including anchor products like anchor butter, anchor cheese, calcium, Fernleaf, Mum, Lean, you name it. These are the names that most probably you still have a lot of their products in your kitchen and in your pantry. So joining us for this episode is Jack Tan, the Food Service Director of Fonterra Brands Malaysia. There's a lot that needs to be discussed. Jack, how are you, Jack?
Hi, good, very good. Thank you, Ibrahim, for letting me be here today.
Yep, so let's go through some of the items, particularly in terms of pre-pandemic, post-pandemic status when it comes to food taste. How has the pandemic affected the food business? And maybe you could share with us some changes or no change in terms of the consumer taste buds that has evolved in Malaysia.
Absolutely, thank you. I mean, there's no doubt that COVID-19 has truly transformed the food service industry, particularly from an out-of-home consumption to an in-home consumption. Consumers are continuously looking for new flavors, new experience, and new engagement, whether through online, offline, in the kitchen, and of course, right now at the new trend of trying to order through home baker as well.
Some of the key elements is, of course, moving towards the economy reopening. Do you feel that consumers are a little bit more discerning right now when it comes to choosing the better products, or are they still going to go with the safe choices that they have had for the past few years, if not months?
Thank you. So, I mean, overall, from a business perspective, as well as from a consumer taste buds perspective, is that people are actually much more adventurous, given the fact that we have been locked down for about 2 years each now, whether it's a full lockdown or a partial lockdown. The consumer are trying constantly to be able to test on new things, being a bit more experimental, as well as trying new flavors, fusion, as well as exploring different kind of combination that they previously did not try. Right now, consumers are looking for hyper customization, trying new things that only they have. Whether it's like new ingredients like classic ingredients like truffles or ikura and so on and so forth, as well as towards the premiumizing even simple things like burgers, adding mozzarella, as well as good creams on cakes and so on and so forth.
The recently launched European-style dairy range elevates the taste of food, at least in that region. Do you feel that similar kind of experience will be going through in terms of the consumers in this part of the world?
What we aim to do is to provide different performance and functional expertise towards our food operators, whether it's a restaurant, home bakers, or a bakery. The key focus here is that with different personality or a different functionality of the product. So for instance, like our European style cream, it's a bit lighter in color and also whitish in color, whereas our New Zealand source product are generally a bit more ivory, yellowish due to the beta carotene from the milk. As well as the range of cheese, where we are focusing in a more complex and cheesy flavor in the European range products, whereas our New Zealand range are focusing on the stretchiness, the big experiential through our cheese in a pizza or a pasta and the like.
There's still a lot more to unpack. We'll go for one short break before we continue our conversation with Fonterra Brands Malaysia. Welcome back. This is Notepad. I have with me on the line the Food Service Director of Fonterra Brands Malaysia. Jack, it's also very important for us to look at the trends and the insights of not retail customers like people like me. I want to learn more about restaurants and food operators to incorporate some of the elements that you spoke of earlier. For instance, the European dairy products, some products that you carry that might be of interest for the local taste buds here in Malaysia. Jack.
Absolutely. So, I mean, generally, there are sort of three main things that we always focus around. First thing first, with travel sort of halted to a certain extent, consumers are trying to try on different things, whether it's American, French, European, or even back to the Asian taste buds like Japanese, Korean, and so on and so forth. So one of the key things, with a new range of product that we have from Europe and as well as from New Zealand, the key focusing is still getting your hands dirty, as well as trying out new things. We have thousands of recipes being shared across our social media page, as well as on our quality platform, where different consumers, including yourself, can actually go and try out on focusing on how to do new things. For instance, last year we actually created about 18 months now, the burnt cheesecake sensation, whereas 7 simple ingredients, 7 single step, but something easy to do at home, just to try out baking at home.
Jack, I also want to talk about the manufacturing part of things, because some of the companies that I speak to, they're not food. They are manufacturing products, right? And they have supply chain issues, either shipment being delayed or production in other places, other markets, having some trouble getting through their own logistic process, and it's taking them time to come here. And vice versa, while we talk about imports a lot, we are also an exporting country. There's a lot of issues there. How about the food service? Particularly, how about Anchor Food right now? Do you feel that there is a constraint in terms of the supply chain for your business? And how is this impacting the business?
Absolutely. There's no doubt COVID-19 has truly transformed the supply chain, or a global supply chain situation, with lack of manpower, lack of containers, as well as lack of cargo ships in the market. We are also experiencing and impacted through the global supply chain, but thankfully, from our rigorous planning and supporting our customer, how we work with our customer is that we have a 4 months rolling planning with each and every of them, as we isolate a demand planning process with them. And for most of our major customers, we are actually still manageable in this sense. But of course, this is something that we monitor on a day in, day out basis, focusing on how can we provide the best service from a surety of supply perspective, as well as upholding our food service quality that what Fonterra stands for.
Anchor Food goes beyond New Zealand anchored product range. And of course, this is 130 years worth of experience that you have built, generational long. And of course, the farmers, they operate in a very interesting method in terms of cooperatives. How has it been in terms of working with your core manufacturers, core suppliers? Has it been tough, particularly during the pandemic?
So to be really honest, within Fonterra, we have a term called what we call good together. Fonterra being a cooperative, which means we can actually control from farm to fork or grass to glass. Yeah. So as we are operating on a very integral supply chain unit, we are able to supply majority, most, if not all of our supply gaps, as well as our demand, supplying the demand towards the market as we speak right now.
And of course, this is important for you to continue on growing the business in Malaysia. Where do you think the growth lies, at least in Malaysia?
So right now, the demand for dairy in totality are definitely growing on a double-digit perspective, focusing more on health and indulgence, focusing on a healthier full dairy due to the nutritional values and so on and so forth. But what Anchor Food Professional is looking at, is driving in the next 12 to 24 months, is really focusing on our local segment. So things like, for instance, how can we penetrate to the local food like nasi lemak, using our cream that can longten the shelf life? How can we work with local burger boys to premiumize their burger instead of using a sliced cheese, by adding mozzarella, as you've seen in customers like Subway or Burger King that has already started the sensation adding mozzarella into burgers, as well as really focusing on our home baker segment, right? Focusing on hyper customization, supporting 50, 60, 70,000 of livelihood on home baking, that is creating a big sprawl during the pandemic as one of the low barrier of entry as an economic empowerment.
I'm not going to debate on the demand. The segments that you mentioned just now, from burgers to homemakers, in terms of the cake industry, and these are critical sectors to grow. My interest is now lying on your end in terms of activation. I'm pretty sure you're going to need a lot of hands on deck to make sure that all these services and products are getting into the hands of your food professionals. Talk to us through the operational aspect of Anchor Food right now. Do you feel that, or Fonterra, do you feel that it's going to be a big challenge in trying to make sure that your people get the best that they can get out of themselves to ensure that you guys can help all the segments that you mentioned earlier?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, continuously improvement and driving a growth mindset is actually very crucial in any organization, including Fonterra. We work with a variety of key retailers, key distributors, as well as different route to market like wholesalers and so on and so forth. We are available in thousands or multiple thousands of retail shops, as well as a different aspect through the supply chain, whether it's van sales or hypermarkets and so on and so forth. Hence, consumers are able to get their hands on our Anchor products. The key focus here in the next couple of months is really focusing on marketing. How can we educate about enhancing and driving efficiency? Reducing waste is one of the key agenda for us. Improving efficiency for our restaurant partners. How can they drive more traffic towards their outlets through marketing, driving like things like Grab ads, social media ads, and so on and so forth for food traffic to revive the food operator scene or the food service segment is one of the key three things that we are driving in the next few months or coming years.
Jack, the element that I want to explore with you next is, of course, your multi-sourcing strategy. In the industry, one can argue that Anchor Food Professionals play a multi-sourcing strategy leader, and this puts you guys ahead of the curve against your competitors. Could you explore a little bit more on that?
Sure, absolutely. As we know, dairy is a very natural thing, right? So ultimately, we are also impacted through different climates or climate change and so on and so forth. There are times where sometimes when there's too much water, like a flood, or too dry when there's a drought, also impacting our sort of milk pool collection, and hence having a multi-sourcing strategy will let us sort of balance off. Having different hemisphere, different continent, and a different milk pool will allow us to sort of balance through our surety of supply and ensuring every bakery, every pizza and pasta restaurant does not go out of stock during Black Swan events. And of course, right now, one of the key things that we do in terms of sustainability is actually very important, looking ahead of the curve as we care for the cows, driving the way how we irrigate the water, caring for the environment through packaging, recyclable, and so on and so forth is also part of our key agenda moving forward.
And then tying this back to that whole issue of supply chain management, I'm pretty sure the problem is now compounded because of your multi-sourcing strategy. While it is sound, it's also quite tricky to execute, considering that the global supply chain problem continues to persist, and I'm pretty sure it's going to continue to prolong throughout the entire 2022. What would be some of the mitigating factors that you guys are deploying to ensure that your multi-sourcing strategy continues to be a market leader, but at the same time navigating through the problem of the supply chain disruption?
Absolutely. So in every challenges or every crisis lies opportunity. As we see, there's a difference in terms of the shipping lead times, and typically from the US will be taking the longest lead time reaching to Malaysia, particularly, followed by Europe, and ultimately New Zealand and Australia, given that the proximity towards us are closer. Having a different variety of shipping lead times give us a way for us to use a very complex algorithm to focus on different stock holding days that we are holding within our warehouse, our partners like our distributor, as well as our retailer, to ensure that we have actually enough sort of stock holding to supply throughout the supply chain, from the big restaurants like global QSR like the McDonald's or KFC alike, towards the small mom and pop store on the roadside as we support them for their economic empowerment. Another thing that we are also doing very diligently is to focus on how can we build and forecast their demand together with the customer, which is something new that we are driving within the industry. We plan with them hand in hand, building what we call a key account engagement with them so that we can know what's their plan in the next 3 to 6 months as we do our forecast together to make the forecast accuracy much more accurate and once again become one of their most trusted partner within the dairy industry.
Sorry, you touched on a very critical point here. Building a forecast management, reducing wastage. Earlier on, you're saying you're using technology. these are kind of the breakthrough solutions that is needed to grow your business even further and provide value for your customers. What would be some of the ideas that you can share with us on this platform right now with me in terms of the analytics or the intelligence that is being used, the technology that is being deployed to ensure that you achieve the kind of targets that you mentioned earlier?
Sure, sure. I think ultimately now more than ever, the key focus about is to be with the customer and consumer at all times. Because ultimately there are no algorithm or there are no system in the world that can solve any supply chain issue without understanding demand. So what we are doing differently here is that we are working hand in hand with our customer to really work with them on what is their marketing plan, innovation plan, what is their new dishes, promotion period, and so on and so forth, and really being able to be having a very structured format to really build as a product pipeline. And then this all information would then be fit into our internal system, and so to speak as a system, but it is actually purely focusing on supply and demand, being able to match that through, as well as to drive any risk mitigation through stock holding management, working capital constraint, as well as how can we ensure that our manufacturing and production are also in line with the demand in the next 3 to 6 months. Because as you know, we can't just squeeze a metric ton of milk today if we want it tomorrow.
No, of course, right? This is about planning, this is about forecasting, but at the same time, the issue is, of course, seasonality. The issue is, of course, moving towards whatever that is trendy. All this, I presume, can be imputed inside this measurement or forecast.
Absolutely, absolutely. So working through with our marketing plans, working through with having a clear sort of agenda of what we want to do, focusing on street food, focusing on building QSR or the quick service restaurants, and supporting our bakeries is our key agenda for this year. Hence, when we build our marketing plans, whether it's our Anchor Legendary Dream Rewards campaign, where we just awarded gold bars out to consumer, driving traffic towards them, and being able to shift our marketing spend in a dynamic manner is also important to be able to breach the supply and demand there.
Do you foresee a lot of capex investment into this area moving forward?
So within Fonterra, we definitely do focus a lot on our R&D process, really not just from a soil perspective as well as our technology. From a regional perspective, we are heavily invested in a supply chain program, as well as working through with local teams to build the data input. And right now, I think the key focus for us is still working through with our customer to have a very clear engagement plan, because sometimes, especially now when we are opening of recovery, we are working very closely with our customer. Hey, what's your dial up plan in the next 3, 6, 9 months to ensure that they make back the profits that they have lost in the past 2 years, particularly for the food service region.
All right, all right. We'll go for one more short break before we continue our conversation with Jack Tan of Fonterra Brands Malaysia. Thanks for staying on with me. This is Notepad. On the line we have Jack Tan, Food Service Director of Fonterra Brands Malaysia. Jack, the thing about businesses like yourselves is that you're grappling on a few fronts when it comes to health concerns. All of us are facing COVID-19 as an endemic, but there's another endemic in the country that needs to be handled well, which is, of course, diabetes and other non-communicable diseases. Many of them stem from food service and the food industry. Where is the position of Fonterra Brands in terms of making your products a little bit healthier? I know you mentioned a little bit just now, but of course we want to learn more about the active events or active pursuit of Fonterra Brands right now to making your solutions more healthy for your consumers and, of course, inevitably for the nation as well.
Sure, absolutely. So from an anchor food professional perspective, most, if not all of our core products are actually sugar-free. Yeah, of course, we are an ingredient supplying to the bakery, restaurant, cafe, and so on and so forth, where they add other things like sugar, chocolate, syrup, or as well as more wholesome things like nuts, grains, wheats, and so on and so forth to create delicious delicacy in what we see in a cafe or a restaurant or a bakery. One of the key things that we are definitely seeing as a trend is the need of it to be a bit more healthier, less sugar, less carbohydrate, having a bit more nutrition, and of course, that's where full dairy plays a role. Anchor food professional products are high in calcium, protein, vitamin A, and vitamin D as well, from a nutrition perspective, while at the same time, we work with our customer to see, can we offer a healthier option for the customer? Lesser sodium, lesser sugar, using different ingredients such as carrot, based or wheat-based product is also one of the key solutions that we are working with our customer to provide better offering. Another segment of it that we definitely need to look into is also on a healthy diet, right? Ultimately, nothing beats a healthy and a balanced diet. Having a healthy amount of fiber, fruits, vegetables, and so on and so forth is very important to then complement throughout the dish. So as we are driving our innovation and sharing with through our chefs. So we actually have four in-house chefs supporting our food service operator. And as we engage with them, introducing new ingredients or a bit more innovative ingredient like kale, things like a certain amount of melons or a citrus fruit that is high in antioxidant or nutritional value. It's also some of the things that we do on a seasonal basis as well.
These are quite extensive solutions that you're providing for the market. Do you feel that outreach is also important? Where do you feel in terms of propagating or championing the idea of advocacy for healthier living, healthier eating?
Sure. So as Fonterra Brands Malaysia, we also work with different organizations like the Food Aid Foundation, as well as Anchor Food Professional do partner with different culinary schools, really advocating not just on the product functionality and performance, but also advocating on having a healthier indulgence is important as we look into desserts, pizza, pastas, or even main meals, and so on and so forth. So giving an example that if we can help transform some of the usage of santan or coconut milk using cream, right, having a healthier alternative or a not so heavy option is also curbing towards that direction.
One question that I don't know whether I feel you can answer is on the dairy replacement or solutions for lactose intolerant consumers. Where does Fonterra Brands stand in milk substitutes?
So definitely, I mean, we don't really have a full stance of whether are we against or with it or against it. But the key point here is I think it's ultimately come back to the consumer choice. The key point here is that consumer are looking for some form of milk substitute, but it comes in waves, whether it's almond, oat, soy, that comes in different phases in time, that sort of come in and out. Definitely for us, we don't see it as anything at all because ultimately it is a complementary product that we can coexist within the market. There is no doubt the market is big enough for more healthy and more wholesome products to be introduced to the consumer, as long as mentioned just now, healthy diet, balanced diet, less sugar, less salt, and less additives is definitely good for consumer within our diet on a day in, day out basis.
Jack, it's been a pleasure having a conversation with you. I just want to circle back to that proposition that Fonterra Brands is right now rolling out. Of course, we're looking at some of the solutions that is being done in Europe. And of course, this include a quality, strong demand for European food and dairy products that is accustomed for high quality standards that could be applied in Malaysia. Before we end this interview, maybe you can share a little bit more about some of these elements and how Fonterra Brands is trying to win the local market using some of the solutions seen elsewhere, particularly in Europe.
Sure. So, I mean, not just to Europe, but anywhere around the globe where we source, as Fonterra Brands Malaysia actually source from many countries. The key thing here is that Fonterra actually have 130 years of dairy know-how, and we carry this expertise, our research and development, technological advancement to anywhere we go to ensure that we are providing the consumer the utmost food safety quality as well as surety of supply. As we are sourcing from the different milk pools around the world, the key thing here is to be able to provide a different taste bud functionality and performance to our users, and ultimately, for them to create nice, yummy, tasty products, for festive, for occasion, and of course, sometimes as a meal solution.
Fantastic. That was Jack Tan, the Food Service Director of Fonterra Brands Malaysia. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com, look for Notepad over there. You can also look for Fonterra or Anchor or any other brands that they carry, because they carry all the household names that you have in your kitchen right now. Till then, thanks very much for watching and goodbye.